Welcome inside the Mountain West Network studio where we're talking NCAA Tournament. San Diego State, fresh off of tournament victories over North Dakota State and New Mexico State, is back in the Sweet 16 for a second time in 4 years.
Get in the tournament is number one. And then make a run when you get there. And then make a deep run. We're trying to do something we've never done before.
Soak this in, fellas. You know, not everybody gets this chance. So he just told us to pretty much savor the moment. And when this week comes around, when it's time for preparation, it's time to move on and just get ready for this Sweet 16.
No matter who we play, we're just happy to be in the Sweet 16. But, playing against Arizona again, it's definitely going to be fun. They're a top 10 program each and every year, so we're just ready for the challenge.
San Diego State will meet up with top-seeded Arizona on Thursday night in Anaheim. The game is scheduled to tip off at 7:17 Pacific time. Let's bring in national basketball writer Andy Glockner to talk about this matchup with the Wildcats. We're very familiar with this. We saw this very matchup earlier in the regular season, the Wildcats of Arizona winning 69-60. What, if anything, do you take away from that regular season matchup, which was very early in the regular season, and can apply it to this matchup in the tournament?
I think for San Diego State, I think the biggest takeaway is they will have seen Arizona's defense in person. I think what Arizona does is you can only practice so much. You have your own personnel on your team. You practice things. You hear coaches saying, oh, we practice, and the big guys hold up brooms, and you can't simulate what Arizona can do until you see it on the court. San Diego State, having seen it already, I don't think will have that shock factor when they come out on the court. San Diego State obviously not a great offensive team at times anyway, but they're not going to be taken aback by the athleticism and length that Arizona will bring to you over the course of 40 minutes. You saw Gonzaga, they were out of that game over this weekend before they were even in it. Turnover, layup, turnover, run-out, dunk. San Diego State, I think, will avoid that in part because of the familiarity, in part because they have superior athletes to what Gonzaga had on the floor. I think, in my mind, that's going to suit them. Now, whether they can actually execute over 40 minutes is going to be the question.
Xavier James with San Diego State certainly made a name for himself in the NCAA tournament. If you didn't know his name by now, you certainly found out about him in the NCAA tournament. One of 3 players to score at least 53 points in the first 2 games. What did maybe people learn about Xavier James that they didn't know over that 2-game stretch?
I think the nation just figured out who he was. I mean, we know who Xavier James is. He's terrorized people all season. He's been one of the best players in the country. Rightfully maybe I would have picked Cam Bairstow, but rightfully a pick for the Conference Player of the Year. Team won the championship, all that. The Mountain West fans know what Xavier James is all about. The nation now got to see what Xavier James is all about. And in conjunction with a guy we're going to talk about, I believe, in the next segment, they have the 1-2 punch necessary to get through these 2 games. 53 points from Xavier James, and they needed somebody else to step in. That somebody else has been Dwayne Polee. So when we talked about last week in the preview who's going to be the secondary source of offense, they may have found it.
Sure. Xavier James, for what it's worth, when he goes for 20 or more points, the Aztecs are 11-0 this season. But certainly they do need that other guy, and Dwayne Polee has stepped up. He scored 30 points in the 2 games combined against North Dakota State and New Mexico State. The interesting thing with this matchup with Arizona, did not play earlier in the season against the Wildcats. What value does he add in this matchup with Arizona?
In what has been a great season for Steve Fisher, that might be the biggest indictment, that he didn't know what he had at the beginning of the season. He said Dwayne Polee was a DNP in that game. The other factor, Arizona does not have Brandon Ashley, a player they lost to injury. He played, I believe, 25 minutes in that game, was a significant part of their front court. So Arizona's a little bit thinner in the front court. Obviously, Polee gives San Diego State a second type of athlete that I think can function now against this Arizona defense. Josh Davis, for all of the pluses that he gives you, is not an explosive athlete and may have some trouble like he did in the first game finishing around the rim against Arizona. Guys like Winston Shepard are not a refined offensive presence, may struggle to score against Arizona's defense. Polee may be that X factor. He's the second guy that they need. He gave it to them 2 times this past weekend. They're going to need a big game from him. Xavier James is not going to pour in 30 against Arizona. They have too many guys they can throw at him. They have a superior defensive guy, Nick Johnson, if that's how they want to go. So they're going to need Polee. Arizona, a team that does not allow you to make threes and does not allow you to take threes. They funnel everything inside and then they swat you and they get the runouts. They're going to need Polee to be that guy, that size, that length, to get some of the perimeter offense going to support Xavier James.
For what it's worth, J.J. O'Brien scored 19 points against Arizona in their first meeting to complement Xavier James. Finally, Steve Fisher. Saw you tweet out after the game on Saturday that This is one of the greatest build jobs in modern college basketball history for Steve Fisher to take San Diego State from where they were to where they are today. What do you mean by that?
I don't think a lot of people nationally, I know the viewers in the Mountain West probably appreciate, although San Diego State wasn't in the Mountain West before Steve Fisher got there. He basically is the conference. He arrived and the conference launched. And San Diego State was, by all rights, a terrible basketball program. There was no local interest. There was no fan base. They didn't have the A-House Arena. They had no tradition, really, of winning. I forget what the exact numbers are, but the number of seasons where they won more than 13 or 14 games in the 2 decades before Fisher got there might have been one or two of those seasons. I mean, we're not talking about a 500 program. We're talking about a team that consistently won 8 or 10 or 11 games a year. What he has done, and it took Steve Fisher 5, 6, 7 years to get this going. They were not great instantly. And obviously when you transition to a new league, and at the time there were other teams in the league, Utah was in here, BYU was in the league, very difficult basketball conference when it started. It took time to get where they are. Now you look at it, the A-House Arena not only sold out for games, but rocking for games. One of the best student sections in the country, one of the best atmospheres in the country. They had an NBA mid-first round draft pick in Kawhi Leonard. They're mining talent. They have transfers that now want to come in and play there. This is a phenomenal build job to get to 2 Sweet 16s now in very short succession, including this one. Look, expectations change as the year goes along. But this was supposed to be a transition year for San Diego State. They were great last year. We expect them to be great next year. Nobody had this expectation that they were going to be one of the final 16 teams in the country this season. And I think Steve Fisher deserves enormous credit for what he's built there.
No doubt. They didn't win a single tournament game until his arrival. Now they've won multiple. They've gone to Sweet 16s, and they have won conference tournaments. No doubt a great build job by Steve Fisher. Okay, let's project here. If the Aztecs are able to get past Arizona, who would they rather see? Would they rather see Baylor or Wisconsin?
I think they'd rather see Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a much more potent offensive team than you're used to seeing out of the Badgers. They can play up-tempo. They got guys that can shoot. They have bigs that can step out. But I think San Diego State's athleticism on the perimeter and ability to switch and guys that are of comparable size and ability might cause them a little bit more trouble. We saw it with Baylor, especially when they played Creighton this weekend, is Baylor's length and the way they play a zone. They really make it difficult at times, especially for a team like San Diego State. You know, we joked on Twitter this week, their offense can lapse into dark territory at times. There are phases in games where they're just not scoring. Now, and if Thames is not on his game, it's doubly bad. You know, so they have a lot of pressure and a lot of unique ways that they need to get things done against a team with the length and size of Baylor, size inside, ability to challenge shots, the zone that they play, make you shoot over the top of it. I'm not sure that's a great matchup for this San Diego State team. I think with Wisconsin, they might have the athletic superiority that could offset some of what the Badgers like to do.
And before they would get the Badgers or the Bears, they got to get through Arizona. The Aztecs and Arizona Wildcats will tip things off in Anaheim on Thursday at 7:17 Pacific Time. Aztecs looking to become the first Mountain West team to get to the Elite Eight. For Andy Glockner, I'm Jesse Kurtz. Thanks for logging on to the Mountain West Network.